Hey everyone, you're listening to another episode of Barely Even Here. That's right, we are back. This is episode 5. I'm really excited. Every time I sit down to do this, I get even more excited about it. I hear that a really big percentage of people that start podcast end up stopping relatively soon. I'm not sure what the exact math on that, but you should just start. If you're considering it, or if you're considering like a YouTube channel or music or anything like that, you just do it. That's the best advice I've heard anybody give. Because in my, I guess you could call it a journey of trying to start this podcast or anything else really, a lot of times I get hung up on, is it going to be good enough? Are people even going to listen to it? You really have to get over that, because nobody knows who you are when you first start out. Nobody does. Your friends might check it out, and maybe some of their friends might check it out, or people they know, but you just have to accept the fact that nobody is paying attention at first. It's like being in a crowd of tons and tons of people. It's going to take a while. You really have to stand out. This is my 5th episode, and I'm nothing special. I'm not saying I'm coming from a place of success. I mean, still nobody. I think I have like 50 downloads on Buzzsprout, but other than that, I mean, I'm just a regular dude, but it feels good to do it every time. So if I'm going to give anybody some advice, maybe you're thinking about starting one, or somebody who wants to start one, but they're just kind of reluctant, just go for it, because it's not going to be perfect. I spent over a year trying to make sure it's going to be perfect, and a lot of it was a real waste of time, because who am I? It doesn't matter the amount of equipment you have or how you look or it does matter how you sound if you're going to do a podcast, but everything else, it really doesn't matter if you're not doing anything, because at the very least, if it doesn't start out that great, you can at least get some feedback from some people, which is still really important. I'm actually going to look up the percentage of people who stop podcasting. Okay, so apparently 90% of podcasters don't get past episode 3. Oh, we're in the top 10%, baby. Of the remaining podcasters left, 90% will quit after episode 20. Oh, that's a new goal. Out of the 90%, out of the remaining podcasters, so out of that remaining 10%, 90% will quit after episode 20. So we got to get up there. What's that? I'm terrible at this. That'll put us in the top 1%. If we keep going, if we make it to episode 21, guys, if we can make it to episode 21, that would be such a huge personal success. I would feel glorified if I did that. And I'm not exaggerating that word. I would literally feel glorified. That would be amazing. I'd do something nice for myself. I was thinking about when I get to episode 10 doing something nice for myself. But it's actually, I didn't realize it was episode 5. That's actually kind of sad how many people just will give up. I think people have this misconception, and I did for a long time, is I'm going to start this podcast and people just are going to start listening to it, or they're not. Or I'd really like to do video. Right now I just can't afford that sort of camera. I actually was going to start a YouTube channel a while back, and I was using my old iPhone because it shoots in 4K, and it looked really, really good. The only thing is I didn't really have the space to do video. I also would need to learn how to sync it properly, and I feel like maybe I'm overthinking this. This could just be me overthinking a situation. But I am overthinking the fact that I would need to sync the video and audio. And if something were to fail with one of the two, I would only have the one, rendering it useless, which I, they may not be too bad of an idea, especially if if I used two mics, maybe. I have more of a. Now I want it to stay consistent. I don't want to use. I was gonna say that I have a couple of blogging mics that I looked up a ton of reviews on, and they sound really, really good. But I'd like it to stay consistent. So if they don't sound like this mic, I don't want to do it at all, unless there's a situation where I have a guest or I need to go somewhere, which I'd like to do in the future. Then I'd probably use those. And then I could just blog it off my iPhone. That'd be pretty cool. That's a whole nother realm. See, we're looking forward. That's what we should be doing. I'm gonna take that as a W. That's a big old W for me. You should count little things like that as W's too. Like, let's say you're in a particular mood and you happen to notice on your own, feel good about that. You should feel really good about the fact that you were able to catch that emotion. That's something that I've recently learned to do over the past couple of months. Since my diagnosis with bipolar 2 and generalized anxiety disorder, I started to journal, and that helped a lot. And when I realized how much it helped me and how much I felt like I was trauma dumping to my friends, like I couldn't shut up, I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going there for a second. When I initially got diagnosed, I started journaling and I was talking to my friends a lot because therapy helps. And I didn't want to feel like I was trauma dumping on my friends. So I just kind of started to record myself. And it's like, well, there you go. Then there's your podcast. Just talk about what you're going through. You're not teaching people how to invest. I'm not teaching people how to work out. I'm not even reviewing any products. That's not to say that I wouldn't. But this whole thing is going to change as we go. I just needed to hit the ground running, and I'll adjust as need be as we go. And I want to say that I'm very grateful for anybody who does listen. Even if it's just one person, to be able to connect with other people like that really means a lot to me. So the fact that there are 50 people that I've got 50 downloads on Buzzsprout, to me, that's huge. I'm 2 followers away. I know this sounds silly, but I'm 2 followers away from having 100 followers on Facebook. And I don't use Instagram enough, so I think I've only got like 15 followers, but I keep getting more every day. And I'm not including bots, because we get those bots sometimes. But it seems like it's growing consistently, very slowly, but consistently. And that makes me happy. And it makes me happy that you would take time out of your day to listen to me. Thank you so much. And as the channel grows, I would definitely like to think of really cool ways to give back. One way that I would like to give back and that I'm capable of doing now is I'd really like your feedback. What are some things you want to hear more of? What are some things you want to hear less about? Do you have anything that just drives you crazy about people, but we treat it like it's normal? Do you have a favorite movie? Why is that your favorite movie? Is there a movie that you hate, but it seems like everybody else loves? Is there, I love music. I could discuss music all day. We could talk about that. So just send me your comments, your feedback, just whatever, really. That's pretty much the whole shtick of the podcast, is pretty much anything and everything that crosses my mind. But I'd like to keep it interesting for you. I don't want it to just be interesting to me or to just help me. I mean, I'd continue to do it even if it was, because it feels so good every time I do it. It's like a therapy session. But I'd really like you to be a part of it. It could be a lot of fun. It helped me get to know my community a little better and help you guys get to know me a little better, which I share pretty openly on this, so you'll probably know me pretty well. Like, for instance, and this will probably be the last time for a while that I mention this, maybe not, because it's relatable and it was a big event in my life, but my breakup is officially done with. I took the dog over to her house, tied him to the banister, and then let her know that I was gone, because she didn't want any contact. Not because of any threat of violence or anything like that. That's just the way that she's processing. She's wanted no contact at all. she has mentioned before that she feels like when she does leave, when we discuss things and we talk about things, she feels like I'm pulling her back in, which is kind of flattering, but incredibly insulting in a way, because it's like, have you just considered the fact that you still have feelings and you don't want to really do this? Or maybe you just need some time away or some space, anything like that. You could consider those options too. So it hurts to think that someone that you really, really care about is just trying to manipulate you back, because it's like, I don't see where that's coming from. What would be the end game there? For your money, which that's definitely not a concern. And I'm not saying that to be ugly, but it's not like she makes a lot of money. She makes as much or less than I do. So I don't get that. I think a lot of it's her own trauma. That's why I can't really, at first, I was really upset, and of course, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll martyr ourselves. What did I do? There's things that I could have done differently. There's things that I shouldn't have said. But then when you look at it, it's like, well, there's only so much you can do or not do. If there's no communication and someone's just going to let those feelings build up and build up and build up inside of them until they feel like the only option is to run, then there's nothing you could have done about that, because that person needs to figure out what's going on in their life and in their mind if they're going to compartmentalize and internalize emotions, especially to the point of something that's devastating for two people. Even though she left, I believe that she was in a lot of pain. From what I hear from people, it wasn't very easy on her. She's got her own journey to live, and I guess I have mine. If it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for her leaving, I wouldn't have gotten the treatment that I've been getting. I don't want to die anymore. My relationships with people have gotten a lot better. It's helped me look inward a lot. I wouldn't have started this podcast because I wouldn't have started treatment, so I wouldn't have started journaling. Or maybe I would have eventually one day, but I mean, the process wouldn't have been nearly as thick, if that makes any sense. It was very heavy. It felt like it was something that was very important. So the journaling helped a lot, and that spawned this. So maybe one day she'll hear any of this. I doubt it. She's very fragile, and she likes to put her shell around herself, and that's okay. That's the way she processes. But I don't hold any hard feelings. I do love her very much. And to be honest with you, if she ever called me and said she wanted to meet up for coffee or just to talk or anything like that, I would absolutely be down for it. I think it was just the wrong time in our lives. But how do we ever know when it's the right time for something, Everything's a bit of a leap of faith. I actually started doing stand-up comedy because I told myself that I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy. And when I was younger, I remember I was watching the original Kings of Comedy. And that wasn't like the first experience I had with comedy, but it was the first time I had seen something like that, where it almost seemed like I can't explain it, like the feeling that I got from being like 11 years old watching original Kings of Comedy. There was something about it, and that was like an epiphany for me. I want to at least try to do this when I'm older, when I'm grown up. And I did. When I turned 30, I went to my first open mic, and I didn't bomb. I forgot I very easily could have bombed, but I don't know if it was some kind of autopilot or fight or flight mode, but it worked out really well. I just kind of went out, did some anecdotes. I didn't kill, not by any means. Few people chuckled. It was really relatable. And I got off stage, and I was very embarrassed. And I went outside, but I was embarrassed, but I was really happy with myself that I had done that I had taken such a big leap. And this guy runs outside, and he's like, "Hey man, was that really your first time doing comedy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I don't know why you're running off, dude. That was pretty good, especially, because I was very open. I basically just talked about how I forgot everything, and I was overly confident and left my list at home. And, I was saying that stuff on stage. So he was saying that, for a first time, especially being in a jam like that, that was pretty good. So you shouldn't give up. I'd like to see you back here. I'll be here next week, because he was from out of town, and he was only in town for maybe a few months. His name was Trey Wilkinson. I can't remember where he's actually from, But he really encouraged me to come back, and I did. And I went back a second time, and people liked it. I didn't kill as far as the audience, like the entire room, but I had some people in absolute stitches, and the whole room was laughing at the jokes, which I have to give a shout out to Judy Carter. I read her book. Listened to all of Greg Dean, his comedy workshops. The Hot Breath podcast is all about that. Mark Normand is on there a lot too, and Mark Normand is one of my favorite comedians because there aren't a whole lot of very successful quip artists like that, and he's really good with it. Kind of like Mitch Hedberg when it came to one-liners. You had like Stephen Wright, where you had like those really dry one-liners, and something about them, they were just magic because they would come out, especially with Stephen Wright, because he was very. By the way, if you're not familiar with who Stephen Wright is, or really maybe a lot of these people, but Stephen Wright specifically is a comedian he's a legend, but he kind of gets overlooked. If the name sounds familiar to you, look him up and you'll hear his voice. He's the DJ. He's the radio DJ in Reservoir Dogs. But he had a lot of really good one-liners. One of his most iconic ones. If probably the funny thing is it's so simple, but it's probably his most iconic one. As soon as he's like, "I spilled spot remover on my dog. I haven't seen him since." It's kind of like that, you know. Yeah, I totally forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, I did, and then I kept going back, and I kept going back, and each time was a little better than the last. And then COVID happened, so there went that. Closed it up for a while. You know, we all suffered through that. And then things started to get better, and places started to open, and I don't know why I stopped doing it. I think maybe I used COVID as an excuse. I think I was self-conscious about things, or maybe subconsciously sabotaging myself, which recently I read a really good book called Stop Doing That Shit, and it helped a lot. It's about self-sabotage and the things that we subconsciously do to sabotage ourselves, or the things that we consciously do to sabotage ourselves. I'm going to find out the name of the author because I can't remember. It's been like 2 months since I read it. His name is Gary John Bishop. Yep. He also wrote a book called Unfuck Yourself, which I'm going to read next, I think. But yeah, he's a Scottish man, and he curses a lot in it. It's very, maybe candid's not the word, but he's very down to earth. It doesn't really feel like one of those weird self-help books, you know, where everything's very almost overtly optimistic to where it's kind of unbelievable, or they're talking about what's supposed to be how anybody can pick themselves up by their bootstraps. But they're talking about getting so lucky with opportunities. You know, these things just kind of fall in their lap. And it's like, well, that instantly takes me out of the immersion because it's like, yeah, I grew up poor. Yeah, man, I could feel that. Yeah, I never really got a chance to really let myself go. Yeah, man, I can feel that. My uncle knew a guy who owned a studio somewhere, so he gave me the chance. It's like, yep, nope, can't relate because now that's a lottery. You know what I'm saying? Those stories like that when it's like, oh, it's a rags to riches story. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of a lottery because the odds of some guy dying or passing away and leaving it to so-and-so and they can't use it, so then they get left a bar. You know, you watch Bar Rescue and shit like that happens all the time. But it's not like that. And it's cool because he kind of curses every now and then, but not to the point that it's annoying. Because I read this one book that was... I really don't want to bash somebody because it's a mental health book, but it's called Unfuck Your Brain. I'm pretty sure that was the book. And if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry, but I think that was the book. And the woman that narrated it, it was too much. You know, when it almost like someone who just recently started cursing. That's kind of how she was cursing in that. Or someone who just recently learned a new word, so now they force it into places. When somebody does that when they're cussing, it really just turns me off, man. It's just so immature. I curse. I curse a lot, but I feel like normally when people curse, they're using it as emphasis, not just because it's a curse word, because it's like, I want to make this feel relatable, so I'm going to curse however I can and put it in places where it doesn't really seem like I needed to, or even wanted to, for that matter. Speaking of which, my 8-year-old daughter asked me today, because she listens to this artist called Dan Bull. He does a lot of rap stuff about video games, and she loves Minecraft, so she's hooked on him because he's a linguist, man. His vocabulary is really, really good, and he raps about video games, and my daughter loves it. And sometimes he'll say words like hell or ass or damn, and so my daughter will be like, "Can I say the word?" Because he'll say a lyric that's got like damn in it. I'm like, yeah, you could say it. So then she'll be singing the song and then she'll say it. But she asked me today, hey, Dad, when I'm older, like maybe 9 or 10, can I start using some bad words? I said, well, that depends on what they are. And she said, well, not like the F word or the S word or the A word, but like the H word and the D word. Like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you use it in songs right now, but I just want you to understand what you're doing. You're not just doing it to do it. She's a trip, man. I was thinking about having her as a guest, but I feel like she would get very bored. So that would be a very short episode. Maybe I'll do it as like some bonus content one day. She could be my first little guest. She's awesome. She's completely turned my life around. I shouldn't say that. Not that she's completely turned my life around, but she's definitely saved my life. I wonder if she'll ever realize that. Maybe I'll tell her one day. Yeah, I'll let her know. I feel like that's something important. You should let somebody know if they have that much of an impact on you. I think it's fair that they know it in some way, shape, or form. Because we can show that we love people. We can show that we care about them. But I think it takes both. Because you could do the same thing. You could say all day, I love you, I love you, I love you. But then you're doing things that hurt somebody. Sometimes even subconsciously, you don't even realize it. It takes both. You got to show it. You got to say it. If you can't say it, don't be a little bitch. Tell the people you love them. Stop being a bitch and love. That can go on some merch later on, right? Stop being a bitch and love. Yeah, man. So my medication to treat my bipolar 2, I'm prescribed Abilify, which is a mood stabilizer. And it's been helping a lot. I use like the lowest dosage that they give, but it's really changed a lot. Sometimes you'll have these manic episodes when you're bipolar. Well, see, like bipolar 1, you get actual like manic episodes. That's I'm not saying it was, but you'll see people, let's say like Britney Spears, when she shaved her head and did all that, people will do things way out of the norm that they would not normally do. There's been times where people have just left their families behind to go do something, or maybe have an affair, or go gamble. Like go gamble and lose like everything they have because these compulsions that they have in them. So what's funny is that the Abilify can actually amplify that. So sometimes I won't know if I'm acting manic or if it's the medication helping me just be productive, because I do get really productive. But lately I feel like I'll have these. So instead of my thoughts racing around, right? I'll kind of change gears. Instead of my thoughts racing around so much, I can actually like almost cherry pick my thoughts. It's so surreal. I've been living with a mental illness undiagnosed for so long that I don't know how a normal brain should feel. I don't know how normal thoughts should work. Usually it's more intrusive thoughts. Or very, very racing thoughts. It's hard for me to grab onto them. So I'll refer back to my breakup. There were times where she said she felt like I was talking to her like she was stupid. But I mean, I'm just agitated at the situation, and it could just be the way I'm interpreting things that she's saying. And then I'll never call her stupid, but the way I would answer things sometimes, looking back, I could see that. But it's neat and a little heartbreaking to notice these things. I feel like one of the hardest parts about getting better, and I will reference addiction as well. I can't speak on that. I've never had to deal with drug addiction myself, but I have had people very close to me, and my own recovery has given me a newfound respect for people that can make it through addiction, because I've always thought, well, you shouldn't do it in the first place, which I still stand firm on. I don't think we should have a parade because someone's 4 years sober or something like that. At the same time, good for you, bro. But when we make it a big deal, it's really kind of agitating, because it's, to me, I find it agitating because it's like now you're giving someone praise in a sense because they did it to begin with. Because there are other people that were never tempted, that never even had the desire. I never had the desire at all to try any sort of hard drugs. And that's really good on you to turn your life around. But there was a time before when I had a zero tolerance. I don't care that you've been, I don't care how long you've been sober. You're still a junkie's a junkie. That's the way I thought. And then going through my own process and my own treatment, you start to realize, especially, I feel most drug addiction comes from a mental health disorder. Like they're already suffering with things that they don't really understand about themselves, or conclusions that they've come to about themselves or the world and people around them. And they want an escape. And usually it's not even a permanent escape. They just want something in the moment, and then it's so good that they continue to do it. And I will say that I was very irritable before I got diagnosed, and I almost enjoyed being that way. I felt like it kept me safe in some way, shape, or form. I was always prepared. Like I would run through these scenarios. Oh, if that motherfucker says this to me, I'm going to say this to him. And if I need to end up getting in a fight, this is what I'm going to do. And if somebody came in here with a gun, I'd probably take this route to get out. And I know I can get out of this. And it was almost these delusions of grandeur. I never acted on them, but that's what they are. They're these delusions. And I can't imagine your brain being controlled by this drug after a certain point. So I'm sorry, I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway. Oh, I remember what I was getting to. I cleaned my garage today. That's what I was getting to. So sometimes I can't tell if I'm being manic, which there's another word that I'm missing, because manic episodes are people with bipolar 1 get manic episodes. These are these delusions of grandeur. I mean, it's mania. I read this book called An Unquiet Mind, which I think they're making a movie of, which if it's anything like the book, I would definitely recommend seeing it, because that woman went through a lot. She talks about like the trauma that started and how long she went without realizing she had bipolar disorder, and her father going undiagnosed with it. It's a fantastic read, especially if you're dealing with mental health issues. But people with bipolar 1 have manic episodes, and people with bipolar 2 have hypomania, which you would think would be worse, but it's not. It's actually just below those. So the Abilify can make you have more impulsive urges, or it can keep you from having impulsive urges. And my thing is, when I start getting really productive, it's like, oh no, is this hypomania, or is this just me with a quiet mind being able to do things and I'm not so depressed? It's weird. So starting a new medication takes time. I was very scared at first because, again, I've never had the desire to try hard drugs. I wouldn't call it a phobia or a fear. I'm just worried I worry about the risk of addiction and what it can do to you. Actually, I almost got addicted to Adderall. I developed a very, very mild addiction. One of my best friends is ADHD, and he was getting prescribed Adderall. And one day we were just kind of talking, and I was telling him about how my mind works and stuff. And he's like, man, it sounds really similar. So he gave me half of one. And I couldn't believe how productive I was and how clear headed I was. And the fact that I could just blow through any task like it was nothing. And that was half of one. So then what we started doing is his doctor started giving him too much, to be honest with you. And he would come over and we would play video games, Modern Warfare 3, and we got so good because we were on Adderall. It's 100% because we were on Adderall, to the point to where a lot of times we wouldn't even use any of our actual guns. We would just use like pistols and tactical knives, and we would even like taunt people. We'd come up behind them and be like, shh, and then they'd start freaking out, and then we'd kill them. It was awesome. But it wasn't awesome because then I started taking them before work. So at that point I was taking about one a day, and they're not prescribed to me. No, I'd never seen a doctor. This was just my buddy sharing his with me. And I worked freight, and I could put a truck away so fast. I can unload that truck, get it out on the shelves to the point where I had nothing to do for the other half of the day. Well, one day I noticed I'm standing outside, and at the time I still smoked cigarettes, and I'm standing outside before my shift, and I'm smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, oh no, I'm out of Adderall. So I hit him up and asked him to bring me one. And then I thought about it and was like, holy shit. Now I'm at the point to where I feel like I need it or I'm not going to get through the day. I'm becoming addicted. And I was incredibly lucky that I was able to do that, because given the right situation, I think I could have fallen off into that very easily, because that was just, I needed it for my job, which it's not like anybody was breathing down my neck. I could only imagine these college students that have to cram and cram and cram loads of information and be from place to place, and a lot of them working at the same time and just needing something like that and experiencing these symptoms. Let's say genetically or physically they don't really have a certain type of mental illness, that they're ADHD. But what happens is you have these factors that really affect your mood. Apparently, you could have an injury that you don't know about, or have an illness that you don't know about, and it affects your mood and your stress levels, even subconsciously. So if you're a college student, you're fresh into the world, and you can't even really fully experience the world because you're still having to deal with school, which is something that you've dealt with for a very long time now. It's very important that you do this. A lot is relying on you because maybe you have taken student loans or you got money from your parents. But either way, there's a lot riding on you because somebody has paid a lot of money for you to be there. Not to mention expenses like living expensive, gas, just your car maintenance. That's if you're not paying for housing on campus, right? So then on top of all that, you've got tests you got to take, and you have study times, and maybe you need to study as a group and do things as a group. It's very easy for college students to get addicted to Adderall. And it's also, what I noticed is, if you watch these things like Soft White Underbelly, or there's some other channels where they go to Skid Row and they talk to these people. I feel like Soft White Underbelly is the best one though, in my opinion. But anyway, man, it will blow your mind how many of these people were college students or were on the right track somewhere, and then just drugs somehow just falls onto them. But I'm very, very, very lucky that didn't happen to me. What if it had been a very high stress, demanding job, and it's like, I physically can't do this. I need to pay my rent. I got to have one. I got to have an Adderall so I can get this job done. I need to keep my performance up. I need to get this done right. And then before I know it, I can't help it. Now I'm going and lying to get my own prescription. And then now I'm a full-blown addict. And then when I can't get it anymore, I find something that will do it. Because I can't stop. I can't stop now. I can't just stop, because me stopping this will hinder my progress and everything else, because this has been helping me so much. I mean, I feel that way about my process. You know, if I don't work out, if I don't do this podcast, if I don't do the necessary things that I need, like take walks or take my diet seriously, I start to feel really shitty about myself because I'm so afraid that I'm going to fall back into the old me and I don't even want to know that person anymore. So I can imagine this mix of ingredients that heals that handles that for you. I can imagine, man. I have a whole new respect. I know I bounced back. I'm sorry. I am all over the place today, man. That's the name of the game on this show. I mentioned something about this. I think it was on the last episode about how everybody's not everybody. I shouldn't say everybody. I'm trying not to use blanket statements. But a lot of people are diagnosing themselves on social media because TikTok is telling them that they're ADHD because they do this cute little quirky thing. I started seeing these memes that said, "Oh, I let the intrusive thoughts win," or "She let the intrusive thoughts win." And it's like somebody standing barefoot in a Subway lettuce container. It's very misleading because that's not how intrusive thoughts work. Intrusive thoughts are just random thoughts that pop into your head. Things usually that you don't want to think about, that you would never actively want to think about in your entire life. Usually horrible, awful, terrible shit that's happening to you or a loved one. I've had intrusive thoughts and I've seen my daughter die in an uncountable amount of ways. My mom, my sisters, people I care about, girls I've dated, friends, friends of mine will go on a road trip or leave to go do something and I will sit and worry because I'll just be playing a game. I'll just be playing Skyrim and all of a sudden, hey, what if Dustin got in a car accident while you were gone? I wonder how long that would take for you to even find out. It's thoughts like that. It's not, hey, put your dick in the pool jet. It's fucking not like that. What they're describing is, I'm pretty sure it's a French word that means the call from the void. I think that's what it means. And it's that feeling of almost something telling you to jump when you're on a cliff. That's not the same thing. It's not cute. It's not cute to have a mental illness. It's not funny. And don't get me wrong, I love jokes as much as the next guy when you're going to make jokes, but that's not making a joke. She let the intrusive thoughts win. He let the intrusive thoughts win. Because that's not what intrusive thoughts are. It's just a misrepresentation. You're probably not ADHD because somebody told you were on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook. Go to a doctor. If you think you might be, let's say you saw one of those videos and it made you realize things about yourself that you didn't realize. Go to a doctor and get diagnosed. Don't just tell people, oh, that's my ADHD acting up. Stop that. Because you're going to run into somebody, or you might have a friend who actually deals with ADHD, and you're over here using it like it's just some kind of cute little way to describe yourself. It's disrespectful. I mean, you wouldn't sit in a wheelchair and roll around a guy that didn't have any legs sitting in a wheelchair, would you? And just complain. Oh, I let the intrusive thoughts win and I put my legs in a wood chipper. Shut up. It's not cool. I'll tell you what is cool. Scoring really good movies. I love that feeling, man. There's not a feeling that's the same as finding a movie, a physical copy of a movie that you've been looking for years. I remember finding Gangster Squad on DVD. I think at Half Price Books, I think I found Gangster Squad, which if you've never seen that, it's kind of like The Untouchables in a sense. Crime's just gotten out of hand, so it's this band of detectives and people they deputize to go take this crime family down. Really cool movie, man. I would say it's a bit of a beat 'em up. Josh Brolin's my man crush. That dude can do no wrong. I mean, unless he gets Me Too'd or something, and then I didn't say that. I retract it if it turns out that he's like a woman beater or a sexual assaulter or something like that. I would take that back. I don't know the guy. I just watch his movies. I watch his dad's movies. Hey, isn't it... Okay, so Josh Brolin and Ryan Reynolds were in Deadpool 2 together, right? Do you think they talk about the fact that Josh Brolin's dad was in Amityville Horror, the original one, and then Ryan Reynolds played that character? I bet that's pretty cool. I bet they talked about that on set. I would have. If I was like a sound guy or like a gaffer or something, I would have brought that up. Hey, you guys ever think about the fact that you played his dad in a movie? Or that you played a part that his dad played in a movie? I would be geeking out over that. That's wild. But I scored Lawless at Goodwill the other day on Blu-ray. Man, if you haven't seen Lawless, Shia LaBeouf, Gary Oldman, my boy Tom Hardy. Man, it's about these moonshiners. It's great. That's why it's called Lawless, because, moonshiners and moonshiners, they're outlaws anyway. And it's just them, because the government's all corrupted. Their local government's corrupted, and they're buying the booze too. But then when the big boys move in, they're trying to shut them down, and then you got gangs that are getting involved. Nice little period piece. Soundtrack's great. Visually, it's amazing. And the fact that it's based on a true story is pretty crazy too. It's nice. I found Chef on Blu-ray at Goodwill too. I love that movie, man. Jon Favreau, Oliver Platt, man. I love Oliver Platt so much. My first experience with Oliver Platt that I can remember, like recognizing the actor and it holding in my brain, was in Lake Placid. He played that specialist, and he had that helicopter that was shaped like an alligator. Well, I mean, it was painted like an alligator. And he was like this huge expert on crocodile, on reptiles, I think, entirely. And the sheriff and him didn't get along. So they're like talking shit to each other, and Oliver Platt's character is about to scuba in this lake that's got this huge crocodile in it. And the sheriff's like, I brought a pork chop for luck. Maybe you could tie it around your neck. And Oliver Platt's character says, that's sweet. Maybe later you could chew the bark off my big fat log. It's like, sometimes it feels like Oliver Platt writes his own jokes. Because, like, you look at Lake Placid and then you go and you watch The Bear, and it's like the same guy. It's just some of those jokes feel like they just come from him. Or Ready to Rumble with David Arquette, Scott Conn. That movie was awesome. But there's nothing like a physical copy. Scoring that physical copy that you've been looking for so long it's such a cool feeling. And if you collect anything else, not just movies, but records, I get the same way about records too. But if you collect anything, that feeling of finding something, it's like longing. I feel like we don't give longing enough attention. Which could be why breakups hurt so much. It's that sense of longing. You find somebody and you don't even realize that you've been looking for them for so long. And then you get them and everything's great. And then they leave and now the longing's back, but in reverse. And you know that the odds of getting it back, because having longing completed feels amazing. Even if it's little things, it's that feeling of having a craving for a Crunchwrap Supreme. And then you finally, like, you have to have that Crunchwrap Supreme from that Taco Bell that you go to. It has to be that one because they're better than the one over on 46. It's just. And then you get it and it feels great. You've been dying to get something, and then you finally get it, and it's that completion of longing, and it feels really good, and it feels terrible when we lose it. That's why it always hurts worse when we lose our favorite shirt, because you'll lose it and it's like, man, I really like that shirt and I can't find it anywhere. Maybe I wore it over here. But when it's like your favorite shirt, man, it's like you never stop looking. You move while you're moving, you're still looking for that shirt. When you move, it's like maybe somehow it got packed into one of these other boxes. It's just that completion of longing. And I'm no expert, but I feel like that could be what makes relationships so difficult to end. Especially if it's someone that you could feel the longing for. It was someone that you knew, that you've really, really liked or loved for a really long time. And then you're finally given a chance and it works. To lose that, Oh, man. I haven't experienced that one yet. Usually I'll meet somebody, and then I will definitely say this is the worst one because it was so good. But that's the feeling I get when I find a hard copy, DVD or Blu ray, of a movie that I love. And I feel like it's gotten even more special because they're a little harder to get. But I would recommend buying physical copies, as many as you can. Good ones. Get friends that watch a lot of movies. And I mean a lot of movies. I'm not talking about, well, they've seen all the Harry Potters and they've seen all of the Lord of the Rings or something like that. No, 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 no. Someone, and they don't even have to be a huge movie buff. Just somebody who loves movies, that likes to watch movies, and they're always the one talking about movies that you've never heard of. They're talking about True Romance. They're talking about Killing Zoe. Because yeah, those are niche, but they're not like super niche movies that you're never going to, they're hardly ever streaming anywhere, I could tell you that much. And how much do you hate this, right? You see this movie and it's an awesome movie. And that buddy that loves movies like that, you talk about it one day and they're like, "What's that?" And you're like, "Oh my god. You've never seen Gangster Squad. You like to watch people get the piss beat out of them. You like gritty cop movies. You've never seen Gangster Squad." "No, I haven't." "Man, where can I watch it?" And then now you have to go do research. "Well, it might be on Netflix, but it might be Hulu. Maybe it's Paramount. Maybe it's on Stars. It might be on Showtime, though. Maybe you could watch it on Freevee with ads, or I think it may be on Tubi." And then it's not on any of those. But if you have a physical copy, you could let them borrow it, or you could have a bonding experience and you guys can watch it together. And it feels awesome because you own that movie. You can watch it whenever you want to. The internet's out, doesn't matter. You could still watch those favorite movies that you have. Especially around the holidays, because for some reason, like Charlie Brown, it's hard to find that one streaming anywhere. Everybody wants you to buy it. You buy it one time and you own it forever now. Doesn't matter if your hard drive crashes because you've got a physical copy. Or your PlayStation fucked up one day and deleted all of your files and now you're gone. Now you don't have Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. Now you don't have a Muppet Christmas Carol. Now you don't have Polar Express. They're all gone. Now you don't have the Christmas episodes of Community anymore. You don't have the Christmas episodes of King of the Hill. But if you have physical copies and you could take them over to your buddy's house, you could watch them at home instead of just being like, "Oh, well, try to find it." Because they're not. They're not. They're just taking your word for it, for one. And two, now they have to do all their research trying to figure out, and what if, oh, it's on fucking Paramount, but I've already got 6 other subscriptions. I don't want to spend any money to subscribe to more shit for one movie that I may or may not like. Buy physical copies. It's very satisfying. It's nice. Plus you get special features. Commentary. Speaking of Community, the commentary for Community is about as funny as the show itself. It's great. I've spent so many hours listening to commentaries or watching the commentaries. They're like listening to a podcast about a movie that you're watching right now, and they tell you all this cool little stuff that you didn't even notice about your favorite shows and movies that you know everything about, but you didn't see the behind the scenes, and you didn't see the outtakes, and you didn't see the deleted scenes, and you didn't see the music videos that come with there, and sometimes interactive CD-ROMs. Sure, you might be 16 and you're on the Shrek train because Shrek is such a huge meme right now, but did you play the little interactive game? There's also one for Snow White. Did you play that, or you just been streaming it? That's a question that needs to be answered. Man, I feel like this has been a pretty weird episode, huh? Maybe it's because I'm still coming down from cleaning my garage and getting up in the attic, and it's weird that I'm just sitting down doing this for so long after being so active for so long. I had a really busy day. My daughter had a horrible cough last night. She didn't feel sick, but man, I don't know if it was her allergies. I let her stay home from school. She didn't sleep a wink. Well, she said that she did, but I think it was just the Benadryl that she took before she went to bed. There's no way. She was coughing so much. And I was busy all day, and then decided to clean out the garage and put stuff in the attic before I sat down to record a podcast episode. And now my brain's trying to figure out, well, should I stay moving, or should I sit still and just talk? Well, we're almost an hour in, so I guess we know what decision I went with. But hey, thank you so much. Stay tuned for episode 6, which will be coming shortly. And I'll let you know that I may or may not be uploading more regularly. I keep seeing in a lot of the groups that I'm in that you should stay consistent and just post like once a week. But I don't know. I feel like I could stay consistent and still post multiple times a week. I could post 2 times a week. Easy. I love doing this. It feels really good. And holding it in, I feel like is a little detrimental because then there's so much that I want to talk about. And then I'm motor mouthing and losing myself. I feel like it would help me have more structure if I did put out 2 episodes, because then I don't feel so crammed. You know, not everything's just smashed into one episode. I can really pace myself, think about what I'm going to say, put it out there, because I don't script. And then with the other episode, bam, that was the remainder. And it might even be a little bit more lax because, I talked about so much stuff in the last episode. And this one, I can just kind of chill and coast through it. What do you guys think? Maybe you should let me know, because I'm ready to rapid fire this boy. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Hey, thanks for tuning into another episode of Barely Even Here. I appreciate you so much. And if you haven't voted Best of the Best yet, make sure you vote for Culture in Seguin, Texas. Make sure you vote for Ursa Botanicals in Seguin, Texas. They're trying really, really hard, and they're awesome at what they do. Hey, again, thanks for dropping by. We'll catch you on the next one.